Some content or topics discussed could trigger a past anxiety or be sensitive or disturbing to listen to or view. Please view and listen with caution. Hi, my name is Todd Blyleven. I'm one of the hosts of the Walking Tall podcast, and it's our mission to help all people that are down and depressed or dealing with some sort of trauma or mental health issue to learn how to stand back up and walk tall again in their lives. Please follow us on all of our social platforms, our YouTube channel, and check out our Walking Tall movement at www.walkingtallmovement.com. Now, here's our show.
Welcome back to Walking Tall. And if you were with us last week, we finally got to the topic we intended to a few weeks earlier in regards to sleep or our lack thereof, or any tactics we utilize to help us get to sleep. And Dr. LaRosa, you just provided such great information during last week's conversation about not only the impacts of lack of sleep, but the benefits of getting sleep to not only our mental, but our physical health as well. And so thinking back to that conversation, was there anything you wanted to just recap or highlight? And, what were some of your thoughts?
Well, just like all other behaviors that have to do with mental health, we have to make a concerted effort to improve our sleep, to keep it consistent, to find things that work for us, and understanding that behavior excuse me, is connected to our brain, and we have a memory. Our brain remembers different circumstances that awaken us, that increase our anxiety at nighttime, and in the same way, remember our ability to sleep. So if you find yourself waking up every night at say 2 a.m., your body is conditioned now, in a sense, to wake up at that particular time. So you have to target these inconsistencies in sleep. However, you might be able to do that. Sleep, go to bed earlier, go to bed later, do something to kind of break that cycle of whatever it is that's interfering with your sleep. It's a lot of work, just like everything else, but it's an important part of our mental health. And so I'm really glad we had the discussion so people can, really work on that.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's something that I know definitely impacts me and Todd, you and I, throughout our friendship and our journey over the last year have exchanged texts at noon, 12, a.m., 3 a.m. We're just up all hours of the night. And not only because you're such a great entrepreneur and a business person working on your personal interests, but, having PTSD or what we have, it does impact our sleep. And I was so encouraged by your vulnerability last week during that conversation discussing sleep and the nightmares you have and things of that sort. So I'm excited to hear your recap and, what were your takeaways?
Yeah, it's always a good conversation because it hits every single one of us, across the world. I mean, we all have issues sleeping at times. I know, like I mentioned, I really try to wind down in my own way. I self-meditate, not in a where I shut everything down, but I just try to relax and calm myself from the day. We run so hard, especially post-COVID now, especially if you have kids or animals or you're married and you have friends and there's things that come up and it's just like bam, 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 bam. All these things are hitting you. So you need that time to decompress. And for me, I really need that. And like I mentioned, I think it's cool that some of these social media platforms are starting to recognize that people are scrolling at wee hours in the night, and they're making suggestions based on your algorithms and how fast you're scrolling to like, hey, you should shut it down, calm down, take some deep breaths. They put you through it's really amazing. I think it's it's an applaud to them recognizing that we need sleep. And so I thought it was a great topic. I'm excited for this show. So,
yeah,
I really am. I think I can't wait for you to introduce this guest.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited too for many reasons, but just to wrap up last week, and as we've always said since I guess March 1st of this year when we launched our first show, we have a strong intent to connect with the first responders community. And whether that is police officers like Brian Wood, whom was our first guest and just an awesome dude, not to mention a pit master and your best man. And Todd, you know, I've been inspired over the break we took this summer, and all the outreach you've had into the first responders community, and going out to Connecticut as you did a couple months ago, speaking to that group of firefighters, I believe, and other first responders. You know, and now, you know, to have our first firefighter on our show is going to be great, because, you know, not only do they, you know, persevere through what you and I have to on a daily basis, Todd, due to their service, but I mean, think about their sleep, right? You know, the hours that they work, the shifts that they have to be on call for, all of these things, their sleep is definitely impacted as well. And so, you know, just to tie all this in together, but most importantly, I'm just so excited for the listeners to hear the story of Mr. Brady Hubler. And Brady is a 24-year veteran of the Seattle Fire Department up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, Washington. He now is making himself very vulnerable and walking tall, essentially disclosing his impacts of his service, and now being an advocate for mental health, as the three of us are. And now his passions not only are serving others, but also have turned to coffee, and serving a good cup of Joe to his local residents in Washington and Sumner there. So we're going to hear all about Mr. Brady Hubler, his service as a firefighter, and his new company, Untamed Coffee Company. So Todd, let's hear that beautiful bell, and let's get Brady
bring him in. There we go. Ding dong.
Ding dong. I'm not calling you a ding dong, Brady, I promise. That's just the sound the bell makes. But
no worries.
Yeah, no, listen, you didn't get to hear, and hopefully you'll tune into this show, and your family will as well. And I hope I did you a justice in introducing you to our listeners and to the world, frankly. But as I've always told you, as we've gotten to know each other, and as Todd has shown in his work, and as Dr. LaRosa has always said in her words, the three of us have a strong affection for the first responders community. Not only because they aided and essentially saved lives in both Todd's and my experiences, but we now also understand the impacts due to your service. And, you know, being a veteran of the fire department in Seattle, as you are, and those things, you know, we've related on many levels, and it's been my honor, Brady, to get to know you. And so if you don't mind, please take the stage, let listeners know who you are, all the amazing work you've done, and we'll take it from there.
No, thank you all so much for having me on here, and it's been great getting to meet all of you and see what you're all doing, especially just in this field of mental health and PTSI. For me, I joined the fire service almost 24 years ago. January's 24 years for me. I wanted to work for the big city, so in our state, it was going to be Seattle, and I didn't want to do a small town fire department. I wanted all the action I could get. I knew what the job was going to entail, but that's just part of the game, you know, all the gnarly stuff you get to see. But there's a lot of great aspects with the fire department, the camaraderie, the good feeling after calls of helping people. Fires were always my favorite. But going through that career, I started to notice a little bit more about my personality. And I started to see more that I was angry. My temper was super fast. And I had one failed marriage. I lasted 9 years in my first marriage. And, you know, placed blame, of course, all on her through the whole thing. But looking back, I can see that I might have been kind of the contributor of issues to that. Got into my second marriage, and we've been married almost 12 years now. And it's been fantastic, but again, lots of struggles. Now, the station that I spent most of my time at, Station 13 on Beacon Hill in Seattle, and it's kind of a unique neighborhood, one of the largest overall response neighborhoods for a single engine company. And we do everything from single family residence to you know, multi-unit places like large apartment complexes. We deal with the freeway north and south of our kind of station area. And then we're first in engine into the largest industrial segment as well. So I've been fortunate enough to kind of have a massive barrage of different types of calls over my career. And in the fire service, we have two kinds of people. We have a black cloud and a white cloud. And a white cloud is somebody that just never gets anything good. That's kind of what we consider good, right? Is those gnarly calls. and then somebody else that's always getting all the fire, all the nasty stuff. And I've always been kind of a black cloud and enjoyed that. That was kind of like part of my persona and my anger and my drive and my high expectations of performance, you know, on the fire ground and everything. I figured kind of fed off of this aspect of this black cloud. Well, about 6 years ago is when I really noticed a change even more severely in my personality and in the family life. And like I said, like even in the second marriage, we've had tons of struggles that I've looked at as, you know, I blame my wife, or I'll blame, you know, kids, or I'll blame, you know, my stepchildren, and never placing any blame on myself. But about 6 years ago, I had my first back injury. And since then, every about 2 years, I've had another injury and another surgery. So I've gone through 3 lumbar surgeries. L5S1 was the first one, and L4L5 were the next 2. And so there's been a lot of time of me out of operations, you know, with surgeries and recovery, going back in on a modified duty time and being at training division. But what happened is I started to notice that I was dealing with these, I don't know, just this greater negative self-talk, right? Where I'm too weak. I can't go out with the family. I don't get to go on trips now because I'm in recovery mode after a surgery. And I just couldn't be the parent and the husband that, you know, that kind of strong provider that I thought I should be. And I noticed how much that was starting to eat at me. And my wife, for probably about the last 10 years, has been telling me I should go talk to somebody and do some therapy. And I have been a huge poo-pooer of that in the past, right? I was one of the guys that would definitely stand up and say, anybody that needs, you know, therapy, or that is having, you know, any struggles or any of the stuff, that is straight up just weakness. You know, you need to pull up your big boy panties and, you know, bury that stuff and move on, because we've got work to do. And she was been on me about that, you know, I need to go talk to somebody. And then I've had a couple other work buddies that have decided to kind of take that step and receive some therapy and some treatment, and just found that life changing, and came to me and said, you know, like, now's your time, Brady. You need to make this step. And so just about 2 years ago is when I finally decided to, you know, kind of pull that cord and say, let's take a look at myself and let's deal with all of the issues that I've been struggling with, from everything as we look at a PTSI, you know, checklist of, hey, here's all our classic symptoms. And I noticed that I could check every single box on the way down of, you know, heightened anger, super fast temper, sleep issues, don't want to be around other people, you know, have to sit in the back of rooms, zero trust. And the list just goes on and on and on and on. And I found that even on beautiful days when I would be out mowing the lawn, and I should be thinking about the nice weather and the smell of the grass and just, you know, enjoying that moment. And I would realize all I'm doing out here is I'm Rolodexing through my mind call after call after call. And they weren't calls where anything went wrong. They were just, you know, some gnarly calls, some not, but they were just calls that it was like, yeah, they went fine. But there was really nothing we can do extra on those calls. You know, we can only perform so well, and there's only so much we can do to save people. And I would just be on these nice days, and that's all I'd be thinking about is call after call. And I had probably, you know, 15 to 20 of these things that I would just roll through my brain. And I thought that was normal. Like, oh, that's just what we do as, you know, first responder, is afterwards how all this stuff piles up on you. And yeah, it's just all in the brain. Mm-hmm. And it's normal to sit and dwell on it every single day. And yeah, and so it found that it was like, hey, listen, I need to go and kind of seek a new pathway, take some time away from the department and work on myself, work on my interaction with the family and my wife, and try and rebuild all the stuff that has suffered while I've been, struggling.
Gosh, I told you guys he was amazing, didn't I? And Dr. LaRosa, just watching your expression, hearing Brady's story, and as he even listed all the PTSI symptoms that he checked every box. And I know, Todd, you and I are probably thinking the same way, like, yes, 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 no, maybe, yes, yes, yes. Dr. LaRosa, hearing what Brady has to say about not only his service, but his symptoms. And I always say, I've always admired first responders because, I said a few times on previous shows, Todd, you or I were thrown in an experience that we had no training for, no desire to be in, no willingness to be in. And first responders subject themselves on a daily basis so courageously. And it's just so admirable. So, Dr. LaRosa, what are some of your takeaways in the first part of Brady's story?
Wow. Well, my heart is literally pounding right now as I heard your story. I first of all give you so much credit for the insight that you have into the anger that you felt and the thoughts and images just circling around in your brain, because all that time you were dealing with high levels of anxiety, hypervigilance, depression. All these symptoms come together and create huge physiological responses on the body and on the brain. When a person is reliving those traumatic experiences over and over again, and you didn't even have a chance to recover from one, it was your daily experience. And how the human brain perceives a trauma is so darn unique. I mean, there could have been circumstances others would not have perceived as a trauma that you did for some reason. And the buildup of that over time creates such a stress on the body. I mean, we talked about what happens when you're in that fight or flight mode, on previous shows. And, this is when you have stored adrenaline, released into your bloodstream, other neurotransmitters like norepinephrine, cortisol, they're released into your bloodstream, and they have a huge physiological effect and a toll that's taken on a person's body over time. Just those feelings of anger and the abruptness that somebody may present with behaviorally, that's a result of the toll that has been taken on your body and your brain over a long period of time. And without realizing that, it could also create a situation where a person is very hard on themselves, where you, like you said, you do express anger in the wrong places, or your behavior is just not right towards people that you love. And then you have to live with yourself day in and day out, beating yourself up for acting certain ways and doing certain things when all the while you're dealing with more than a human being is equipped to deal with. And so, I talk about, number one, forgiveness of self, because, this is a hard part of the cycle. When a person is in that anxious, depressed, hypervigilant mode, and then on top of it, they have all the physiological symptoms. They have heart racing, they have stomach pain, they have insomnia, they have intrusive thoughts and images and fears and triggers and all these things that are interfering with your daily life. You're out there, you just want to smell the grass, you just want to mow your lawn, and here you have the burden of all this stuff all over again, time and time again. What a burden that is. And that's why my heart and my mind goes so deeply, into the experience of people like yourself, because I want to share what I can to help you, and to help others, and for people to understand the plight that they've taken is no slight one. And, and it needs to be recognized. There's a great therapy, technique. It's called ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. It's part of cognitive behavior techniques, and it really helps a person. It helps a person through the whole navigation system of being able to be in the moment and being able to increase their mental flexibility to be able to kind of compartmentalize some of the traumatic stuff, in combination with EMDR and other kinds of things. There's so many effective therapeutic avenues out there. I can't encourage people enough to give that a shot, and to really just each step of the way, whenever you want to beat yourself up, or anyone in your position, please just forgive yourself and let that be step one, and know that people love you regardless, and know that the amount of people that you've helped in your lifetime is nothing less than heroic. A few times in my life, I've been in accidents, or I've been, in situations, and it's really interesting how the strongest of people mentally, or physically, as you are, just really in a vulnerable moment, rely so much on people like you. I was in a car accident in my early 20s, and I was just knocked out cold. And, I kind of woke up laying in the middle of the Long Island Expressway, and, thank God, for EMT workers and first responders that came to my rescue at that particular time and got me the help that I needed, because, I was a dumb 23-year-old saying, "Oh, I'm just tired."
Well, Dr. LaRosa,
For a
stop
while.
yourself right there. You've never been dumb in your life. Let's
Oh,
start
yes,
there.
I sure was.
I guarantee it, knowing you as long as I have now, dumb is not something you've ever been associated with. But Todd, Dr. LaRosa mentioned EMDR and various therapeutic tactics. And Brady, you may not know this, but, before I got to meet Todd, he and I didn't know each other. But after my experience 3 days later, he sends me a text out of the blue because of a mutual friend, and he's already referencing EMDR, right away. Chris, this is what I did. And I was an idiot. I was dumb, because yes, I am Dr. LaRosa. I can call myself that. And I didn't take his guidance immediately, but I am now, and it's paying great dividends. But Todd, man, I just know your heart is probably as big as Texas right now, here in Brady's story, and I know your sentiment that you carry for first responders, and our first ever guest, Brady, was a police officer, and not only a police officer, but Todd's best man in his wedding. And so, we have a great affection for the community that you represent. And so, Todd, the floor is yours, man. I'm not even going to ask you any questions, because I just want to hear what you have to say.
Well, first of all, Brady, thank you for your service, number one, to your community, to your state, and to our country. So I think it's amazing what you guys do. I was almost a first responder. I was almost a Marine. Baseball steered me off into playing professionally, and it got me out of the opportunity probably to get it, to go into the Marine Corps. And then when I got done playing, I wanted to be an officer. And so I started testing in Southern California, and then I ended up getting into scouting. And I often think about how my life would have been a little different if I had been a first responder. But I grew up with first responders. We always had first responders over at the house. My dad was a huge, and is a huge proponent of supporting first responders. And when we think about first responders, it's your animal control, which we don't think about, right? But they are first responders in a way, right? And well, not in a way, but they are. They're classified under the peace, the military, the fire, law enforcement, and everything else. So it's but I've been on those calls. I've had an opportunity to guest on certain rides, go ride-alongs with fire departments and visit. And really more lately in life, especially since my incident in Las Vegas, I've had interaction with law enforcement in certain car accidents, and seen the perseverance, the organization that you guys have on scene, the teamwork that happens, the go to business. This is work. This is real life, the care, everything that goes into that, the adrenaline that happens. And we had an incident when my younger brother drowned in our pool in our backyard. And thank God, we were able to revive him. And I answered the door when fire came into the house, and they were going to knock that thing down. They were on a mission to get to that backyard, to get to that victim, to help. And that was probably one of the first times that I had seen a real emergency, in my life, where people were acting in a way that nothing was going to stop them to get to that person that needed help. And so I know, the toll that your body takes. You know, I know that firsthand in terms of picking up a dead weight of a body and throwing that over your shoulder or carrying that in your arms, and the exhilarate, like everything that goes into that moment. You guys did that. I don't say every day, but you put on that uniform to do that every day. You know, similar to like an athlete, you know, we would go and we would prepare and we would have our downtime, right? And then when it came time for game time, we would put our game uni on, and we start to dress up, and you start to think mentally how we're going to prepare ourselves, right? And I know in the locker room, when you guys are getting dressed, there's this preparation to it of, okay, I'm now a firefighter. I went from maybe being a construction worker, or I'm mowing the lawn or whatever, but now I'm going to work. And what's interesting is, you know, I was able to do a conversation, very blessed to have been invited to the first responders trauma team dinner in Fairfield County, Connecticut. And it was a lot of first respond, a lot of fire, military, police, NYPD, Chief Bernie Meehan, which we're going to have on the show at some point, or assistant fire chief up there. You know, was involved in a crazy incident. And you hear about what a firefighter or a first responder talks about is they're a master of chaos, right? You're a master of chaos. When chaos happens, that's when you rise. That's when your blood starts going. It's the same kind of feeling probably as, I've never been in combat, but listening to a lot of my buddies, and I've got tons of military in my family, and all my friends are first responders. Not all of them, but the majority of them are. And
I guess we're not friends, Dr. LaRosa.
No, we're great friends. We're talking about family, but you hear about that adrenaline that goes into it, right? And it's a, same type of thing I would imagine as an athlete when you're really getting motivated into what you want to do and you trust yourself. There's this routine and this consistency. Well, in your case, you're going into a horrible situation, and so the one thing that I realized in that conversation and speaking to so many of these first responders is one firefighter told me, he said, the difference between maybe being a firefighter and a police officer or military or somebody that's working more solo is you guys have this 5-man team or 5-person team of right? That you go in, you experience this horrible, horrible stuff, and then you come out and you're expected to go eat dinner, right? And you do that, and you do that with grace. And in your own way, you process things through your own, whether it's trying to lighten up a conversation in comedy or something else, but you're trying to process that. But in reality, you're not really processing it for you. And so I'm going to wrap this up here, because when I got back from Las Vegas, of course, I was in a state where, I was running for 8 hours. I carried out all these people. I lost women in my arms. Horrible, horrible, crazy stuff. And I'm sitting there, and first call was from a military combat vet telling me, giving me this 72-hour survival guide of what I need to do, and my headaches and my speech and everything else is going to be messed up. But the next call was from a buddy of mine that's was a captain in Rockland, California, and a guy that I went to school with. His name's Chad. I won't say his last name, but he basically started talking to me about EMDR. And this is what he tells all his people, right? So here this guy's telling me what to do, similar to what I was doing with Chris. Go to EMDR, get training. So he'd said, find a relatable therapist. And I learned this even through Fairfield County and different people I've spoken to. It's so important for first responders, especially, to find a therapist that's relatable to them, that has heard those stories, because you're not going to be able to go in and throw that craziness down on the table if that person sitting on the other side, you're worried about their outcome. You need to be able to go and speak it. They need to be able to absorb it and take it and give you advice. And so I went through EMDR, and it was absolutely amazing. It helped me for a year and a half process everything. Well, Chad hadn't gone for himself. And so similar to your story where you're eating it all up and you're mowing the lawn, because I've been there. you're mowing the lawn and you're thinking about stuff that you shouldn't be thinking about. And all of a sudden, a year and a half ago, Chad says, "Hey brother, I want to let you know I'm going to therapy." Now he's been in therapy for months and he calls me on a regular basis. He's like, "Hey brother, I'm going in for a tune-up." And he's proud of it. And it's amazing because, like I've told every other first responder I've met, Boston PD loses his partner in a firefight, going back to therapy. He found someone. It's great. I'm like, Ben, you've checked your tough box. You don't ever have to check your tough box again because you did that. You're strong. You were the one that braved it to go. Nobody told you to go to, you could have called in sick, but you didn't. Every single day you went and put that fire suit on. And when that bell rang, you jumped in that master of chaos type moment, and you went and you put your life on the line for someone else. And that is so absolutely heroic and admirable. And at the end of the day, you have to now focus on you. And that's what you're doing, which is another huge, brave, vulnerable moment, which you're becoming now another hero in your life for others to be able to learn from you and have a survival guide. And I'm so just happy that you're coming out and you're talking and just being here with us today, because that's what our mission is, right? To help people that are knocked down, process it on your own, process it with group therapy, find your pals, your rocks, and move on.
I got chills. I told you I just wanted to hear what you had to say, Todd. And Brady, we've talked and I've been so honored. I've had the fortunate opportunity of getting to know you offline, and we've exchanged texts at all hours of the night, Todd, no different than you and I have throughout our journey. And now maybe if I'm sleeping or Brady's sleeping, now we have a 3-man group that we can connect with offline. But it's been, just so admirable, Brady, getting to know you and your courage, not only in what you did for 24 years or thereabouts in Seattle, and as I've witnessed in my own experience, seeing the heroism of not only first responders from the community of Highland Park, but in my experience, due to my role in the event, there were first responders from every community within 30 miles of Highland Park, hauling ass to get to the community as fast as they could to just aid people. And so all while a killer was on the loose. And so here you have people who are probably at a barbecue celebrating the 4th of July, throwing their tongs down and throwing their uniform on to come help people that they don't even serve for their own community. And that to me is just so heroic. And so I'm just curious to hear now, having here Dr. LaRosa and Todd and what it is you're doing now, through your self journey and your healing. And, not only did Todd talk beautifully about what it is you folks experience, but he mentioned the word grace. And I just think that's a great word, Brady, to describe you, because not only were you probably courageous and graceful in your service as a firefighter and still are, frankly, but with our partnership and Untamed Coffee and all that beautiful, things that will come in the future here. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and what that's bringing to your life and what you're doing about that up in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, I will tell you, as much as I would love to say, I go through therapy and everything is, rainbows and butterflies and all that. It's like, I struggle every day. Right. So my daily routine, if I try and get a couple of little wins every day. And this is all stuff that I didn't expect. And so, like I said, after, I kind of, took my leave from the fire department and have been working on this stuff and kind of struggling through it. Right around that same time, the wife and I and another partner decided to start a coffee company. And it was like, hey, listen, here's another outlet. Here's something else we can start putting some energy into on the side, almost as a little, therapy aspect. What can I do to assist, in this new pathway in our life? And when I'm not struggling hard, then I can, kind of put some of that effort into this coffee company. But so just over about a year and a half ago, we started a coffee company, Untamed Coffee, and we have a couple of roasts. We sell online, so we ship across the country. We do ship some coffee to another coffee shop that uses our stuff, but we're super picky with our coffee. But with that, and especially our actual sit down location, my wife has been super big on community. And so that is kind of this other element of untamed. And untamed means something completely different to every person, right? My untamed is not, Todd's untamed or Chris's untamed or Doc's untamed, right? We all have this individual aspect of whatever we feel our untamed life is. And with the community aspect of our untamed shop, it's really bringing in everyone from all across the community. We don't discourage, anything or any different type of people. We want everyone to feel at home there. We make the customers feel like our friends. They're people that we see every day, and we talk to, not just, hey, how's your morning? Here's your drink. It is, hey, how's your morning? What were you doing yesterday? How'd the weekend go for you? I heard you said you have this plan for the week. It's like, we make our friends there. And for me, not actively, working in the shop, I end up spending a lot of my time meeting other firefighters, other police officers, just other first responders at the shop. And it'll turn into little impromptu meetings of, how are you doing? How are you doing emotionally? And what steps are you taking, to work on yourself or to work on some of the issues that you're finding that are popping up? And so we almost have these little miniature therapy sessions within the shop. And sometimes we have larger sessions. We've had, groups of 10 people show up and just kind of talk about all of our pathways and to let each other know, much like the Walking Tall movement. And that's what I feel so almost empowered in just this big emotional push by being able to join up with you all, is that to let other people know, like, this is okay. And these struggles are real, and their impacts on us individually and on our family life, which is huge. Those are real things. And we need to be able to recognize that, come to grips with it, and know that there's other people that are out there that we can grab onto and hold their hand, that they can pull us up, and we can, manage through this stuff and rise above it and live a normal, good, productive life with good family life.
And good coffee.
That's absolutely right.
and
Yeah.
Dr. LaRosa, we've said, many times, the dirty secret, as I call it, about Walking Tall, particularly in our movement for the three of us, is that, in many ways it's self-serving, no different than, Brady's involvement with Untamed, right? The therapeutic benefits we have in helping others and carrying our mission and movement forward, not only because we know and we hope to help others, but the work we do inspires us and keeps us motivated to keep going and endure some of the struggles that we all endure. And so hearing about these mini peer support groups that are popping up at Untamed in the shop and all the work Brady's doing with his other first responders, I just saw your heart grow as he was talking, knowing you as long as I have. So have at it.
Yeah, it's like the Grinch that stole Christmas when his heart is just expanding. I was there with you in your coffee shop. I could smell the coffee. I could feel the level of comfort from your peers. And you are the epitome of Walking Tall, and how you've taken your experiences and what you're currently going through and used this business to help others, inadvertently and in a very planned way, now that you've realized the power that you have to influence other people's lives is tremendous. And those peer support groups must be worth so much to the people that attend them. And it's just truly amazing how you've developed this and how you've gone in this path from your own hurt, how you're using that strength that you have now in a totally different way. And psychologically, the whole discussion of PTSD as it is diagnosed still in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and the, PTSI injury. I mean, it's really just a conceptualization of the symptoms and how a person reaches that state, right? But so much of it is physiological because of the body's response to those triggers and traumas, that it really does become a physiological toll on the body that has a memory. So it's a tough thing to put into words. And, the way that you described it, I've never experienced PTSD, on that level, but the way that you described it and kind of walked through it, I think is so beneficial to people who may not realize that they're experiencing maybe the same things, and hopefully they can get themselves help, a little bit sooner in the process. It's never too late. And the fact that your life is going in this direction to help so many people I'm overwhelmed by that. So
it's a safe space, and that's exactly why I can't wait to get up there. And not that I'm a coffee drinker, but I'll have one of your muddy sodas. Maybe a few.
drink
I
didn't know that about
Oh
you.
yeah, we'll talk about those quickly. But speaking of a safe space, right? That's exactly what we're trying to create with Walking Tall, and frankly, that's what I had with Todd since July 7th, 2022. Right, I had a safe space to be my authentic, vulnerable self. To disclose what it is I was feeling and experiencing due to my experience, and having that type of camaraderie and friendship and brotherhood is so impactful. Not to mention, providing an actual environment like you are, Brady, up north in the Pacific Northwest area. It's just so inspiring. I can't wait to get up there. I think it was earlier this week you gave me a video tour. I got to see all of some of your old fire helmets and all this kind. I'm like, man, I just want to put one of those things on. And but Todd, you've been such a great sounding board and mentor for me throughout my journey. And now hearing that Brady's doing the same, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Number one, we need to have that outsource, that resource, that one person that shares a relatable feeling that we can talk to. I've spoken to various people, we all have, and when all of a sudden your story resonates with them and they feel safe and they start to talk, it's our responsibility and our duty really to listen, right? So it's that moment where we really have to take everything that's going on and spend that time to listen to this person, because this person has finally found a connection that they feel like they can speak with. And that environment of like a coffee house deal, that's so cool, because I could see it, man, just like sitting down on a plush couch or even just a little table in the back and sharing some emotion. And when you get two tough ass people that are talking about their own vulnerabilities and you start to see eyes well up, that's power, right? That's strength, because we're healing each other. We found someone that I can speak with. I'm not alone in this world. And I think that's just absolutely magical, and it needs to happen more and more. One of the things I wanted to talk about or bring up was, you talk about PTSD, PTSI, PTS, trauma, right? And I've been really, like, the last year, when I speak to like a military, like a combat vet or someone, they go, oh, you have PTS. You don't have PTSD. You need to drop the D. Well, I'm dropping the D because it's got the disorder word on it, which is a sign of weakness, right? Which is what they don't want. And then you've got the PTSD that is very well known. I mean, when you talk to someone that's about, hey, I've got PTSD, it generally resonates with some sort of major traumatic battle, a horrible scene, crazy thing that's so far out of the majority, thank God, of our world or our daily life, right? In a normal work life for mom and dad, kid, whatever. And then you got PTSI, where you go, PTSI is an injury. So like I carried out, I ripped up my entire left side. I had hernias. People were saying, you don't have PTSD, Todd, you have PTSI because you were physically injured in what you had done. Okay, well, then you go, PTSI can affect the brain though, too, because it's a brain injury. It's something that hurts all the time, right? So there's all these new medical facts coming out. I really love the conversation of it because it's bringing light on the fact that we've all experienced trauma. And that's where I've gone more, where just so, we're talking, because the person that's listening right now may not have been a firefighter, may not have been a combat vet, may just be a mom that's walking her dogs, listening to our show, or could be an educator that's watching our show. And to them, what you're experiencing, Brady, and what Dr. LaRosa has experienced in her past, and the stories, and what Chris has experienced in sports, in life, in his traumatic event on July 4th in Highland Park last year, what I've experienced, it's all trauma related. And so if we can focus our conversations around the trauma word and then breaking that down, I'm just curious as like to listen to Dr. LaRosa talk about it and your own thoughts, thinking, you know, you have PTSI, and brother, number one, you're not alone, number one. And number two, I am always there. You ever need something, Chris is always there, Dr. LaRosa, but you've got 3 people now that are in your wheelhouse. And I am so pumped to at least call you a friend, call you a brother, and just we're there. So,
well, Todd, you know what,
you.
that's a great topic for a show. I think, you know, we can have trauma survivors have the conversation of disorder versus injury versus S. Because I say now, as I'm becoming more educated through our work, I have an injury, no different than that one pitch that you pop your elbow on. And it didn't matter about the 55 million other pitches you threw. It was that one pitch that blew you up. I had one event where, bam, my personality's changed. Whereas Brady had 23 years. You know, there's a different topic of conversation there. But we are running short on time. And I just wanted to say, Brady, you know, this conversation has just lit a fire. I could tell under Todd's butt and Dr. LaRosa, and I am just so excited for our partnership and our work moving forward, and knowing that you're a part of our movement, and we got much greater things ahead of us together, the 4 of us, and frankly, everybody else we come together with. And so before we do sign off, you know, I want to give you a chance, like, let people know, like, how can they buy your coffee? Where can they interact with you? How can they hear your story? Like, let people know who you are, where to find you, and then we'll wrap up.
All right. Well, so it's untamedcoffeeco.com is our website. Obviously, we're on Instagram, Untamed Coffee Co. We're on LinkedIn, all that good stuff. Our coffee can be ordered straight online through the website, and we ship all across the country. We have monthly memberships. So if you want a repeat product coming in, 12 ounce, 2 pound, 5 pound, whatever bag coming to your house, you get that. And that's actually discounted. Anybody that wants to go on there as a first timer and order some coffee, if you use the code Live Untamed, all one word, that's an immediate 10% off. So do that for anybody out there. And if you're in the area, our flagship store is in Sumner, Washington, and that's where you can run into me, my wife, my kids. All of them work in the shop all the time. And then within that shop, along with our coffee that obviously we ship locally, we have muddy sodas, and the sodas are any of the Coke product bases, and then different flavored syrups added in to create different flavor profiles. And we have right around 300 recipes for those, and they are phenomenal. My wife has been huge on those. That's kind of her thing. And they're amazing, as whether or not we have Lotus based or Monster base, and then obviously all of the standard sodas.
My daughter,
I'm drooling already. Listen, we're gonna go up there and I'm gonna try all 300 of those muddy sodas. My waistline may not appreciate that, but you know, the other thing Brady has done, and Dr. LaRosa and Todd, I think you both saw, and we're going to work on, he's been so kind, and he's been willing to, you know, we're going to get some stickers sent out to him. And when they ship coffee bags, he's going to put our logo on the coffee bags that they ship to consumers. And so our partnership is growing. You know, we're hopeful at some point, you know, the 3 of us or one of us in some fashion can make it up north to Seattle there and have conversations like this. But Brady, as I told you, man, you're stuck with us for a life now. You're a member of our movement. You're not going to be able to get rid of us whether you want to or not. And so this conversation has just been so inspiring. Todd, I could tell you're to the moon. Dr. LaRosa, you're so as always, inspired and humbled. And if you as a listener are the same, please check us out, www.walkingtallmovement.com. There you could find our shop, pick up a t-shirt, a mug. You could put some Untamed coffee in one of those mugs, by the way. And or you can, you know, go to our GoFundMe, help us you know, move forward in our efforts. But most importantly, just share our word and let people know we're out there. Share our socials, share Brady's socials with Untamed, and look for us to do great things moving forward together to help first responders and all people for that matter. So before we sign off, there's always 2 words we want to tell our listeners and each other. So Brady, why don't you lead us in those, man?
All right, everybody ready?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Walk tall,
Walk tall, everybody. Have a great
Walk
rest of the
tall,
week.
everybody.
Walk tall.